Got one quick question for you. Would you like to be part of a movement designed to raise the awareness towards all the limiting, isolating, and often invisible boxes that people are either placing themselves or others into? I believe together we can create a world where people are valued for who they are, not from their gender, race, religion, status, or whatever the box is. Here's my personal invitation to you. For as little as $1 a month, you can become a changemaker yourself. All you have to do, you have to go to www.patreon.com/no-more-boxes. Now let's get that podcast going. You're listening to the Changemakers podcast, where we share tips, insight, tools, and stories from other changemakers designed to motivate you to become the change you want to see in your world. Make sure you join our Changemakers community at runamagnus.com/podcast. And now, this is your time to sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Yes, do you feel powerful? Do you feel powerful? Do you feel powerful? That was the thing that came up for me when I met our guest today, Tim Matthews. He is the power man. And I remember when the first time I met him, I thought to myself, power man and being powerful. Am I being here strapped into a box of what it means to be a man? Or is this something that has nothing to do with the gender of being a man? And I just had to get Tim as a guest on our podcast. And here he is. Welcome, Tim Matthews.
Wow, thank you for having me. It's this is going to be interesting. This is going to be very interesting.
Yeah. As you know, I'm on a mission. I'm basically on a mission. I just think there's way too much that connects us humans together than divides us. And it's what is dividing us and making us feel isolated and lonely and not belonging and all of that are some of these invisible boxes. And I think the more that I think about being a man in today's world, I think there's so many boxes there that are stopping men from being fully who they are, whether it's they want to see that as being a masculine man or a feminine man or whatever what label you want to put onto it. What is your view on that, Tim?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, there's one stat that comes to mind that says it all, isn't it? And that is, suicide is the biggest killer in men right now. I think aged 29 to 45. It's somewhere within that age group. But, that's irrespective of the age. The point is it's the number one killer. And in my experience, we've worked with hundreds of men by this point. All of them, they all tend to be entrepreneurs. But I think that it still translates to the guys in a corporate world or the jobs or stay-at-home fathers or whatever it is. It's masculinity in general. And that question is something that is often very lost on them. It weighs heavy on them. One of the ways that I always like to consider it is if you think about tribes, you think about any tribe in the world, wherever it is, there's a rite of passage in becoming a man, isn't there? And that rite of passage will happen at a certain age. And usually the boy will go through a certain series of exercises. And if he successfully completes them, then he will be given manhood. And when he is given manhood, that means that he will then take on a certain role with certain values and certain responsibilities. And his whole perception of who he is and how he shows up in the world shifts. And in my experience, from what I see, and myself included for a long time in my life, we just become a man by default. And we often then start to live our life and create things based on what we think we should do due to what it means to be, quote unquote, a man. Strong, persevered, don't be a pussy, don't cry, don't be a girl. All these things. When we work with the men, they come to us very lost, very confused, overwhelmed, unfulfilled, numb. And it's because they've been living these ideals and they've been living them for a few decades and they've reached a point in their life where they realize, shit, this isn't working for me. I thought the money was going to be the answer, so I go and make loads of money, and the more money I make, the worse I feel, the bigger the void in their life becomes. They thought that women were going to be the answer, so they'll put their self-worth on being able to attract women, and often they have they ruin relationships in the process. And whether it's alcohol, drugs, fitness, you'll see a lot of guys wearing the mask of going to the gym and working out and looking really strong physically, but again, it's just a mask for the pain they're feeling inside. So that question, Runa, is something that is definitely a prominent one right now, and one that I think a lot of men are searching for the answers for. Often they're doing it behind closed doors because, again, they don't even want to admit that they're searching for the answer to that question, because that in itself would look weak, or they'd then be admitting defeat.
Yeah. This sounds to me like you yourself have gone through a huge transformation in your own life, unlocking, opening up for boxes that it seems to me at least that you've been in a ugly box that wasn't really serving you. Are you willing to share with us what happened? How did you wake up?
I'm still waking up. So basically, I'll be 33 in a few weeks. And 4 years ago, more or less around this time of year, it's August right now, I was engaged, due to get married, and we booked a wedding, and we'd bought the house, a big 4-bedroom detached home fit for a family of 4, 5, 6, whatever. And my life was a pattern of stress, struggle, and sacrifice, really, if I'm honest. And everywhere I turned, I was putting out fires. I was putting out fires in my business. I was attracting problem clients. I was undercharging for my services. I was doing everything myself. My team was in complete disarray. My relationship was a complete sham. We'd booked the wedding, we'd bought the house, we'd got engaged, all when I knew it didn't feel right. I was getting robbed of tens of thousands by a business deal that I knew I should never have gone into, but I went into it out of neediness and desperation. My health was completely up and down. I'd recently almost died from taking too many drugs. And I was really running from the reality of what my life was. I had a history years before that. I've been a serial cheat, to be honest. Put my self-worth on being able to attract women. And it cost me my relationships. And I met one of my closest friends now, a guy called Tom Crawshaw, more or less 4 years ago. And he was working his business online, working it from anywhere in the world, earning more money, helping more people. And he was a real wake-up call, because up until that point, I didn't know anyone in personal development, quote unquote. I was very much on my own. I'd listen to audiobooks, read a few books, but this guy was like the real life living proof of everything I knew to be possible. And so that was the first slap around the face, or wake-up call, if you will. And the second one came shortly after it, because about a week or so after that, my mum and dad were about to put, I don't know, 10,000, 15,000 pounds down on the wedding that they'd never get back. And I just knew that the wedding was going to end in divorce. I just knew it. And I couldn't go through with it. I just couldn't do that to them. Sometimes I wonder, what would I have done if it was my own money? So, yeah, long story short, I called off the wedding. I ended the relationship. I didn't move into the house. We had a franchise at that time in the business. I got rid of all the franchisees. I got rid of the business partner that I had, moved out of the offices that we were renting, moved back home with my parents, and I started to do it my way for the first time ever, which was just following my gut instinct, because for all my life, I had ignored it because of the boxes that I was wanting to fit into. And really, my perseverance was my badge of honor. I used to take pride in how hard I could work, 15, 16, 17 hours a day. I can literally remember speaking to someone and saying, I've worked 22 hours today. Like it was a badge of, yeah. I realized that the reason why I was ignoring my gut instinct was purely because I was afraid of it. It was always leading me down a path to do things that I was too afraid to do because I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel good enough. So I went with the easy option, which created all the chaos in my life. I didn't used to express my emotion. I'd bury it. I'd push it down. There were so many boxes that I was layering on top of myself. and it was chaos, to be honest.
It was chaos. And it's interesting to hear that when you started to listen to your intuition, you really took a leap. I mean, this is quite something to not only call off the wedding, but getting rid of your business partners, getting rid of your office. You just totally transform your life. How did it feel at that time? If you take us through that time, and did you always feel like, did you ever get that feeling of what the F am I doing?
That feeling was more so in my life before I made all those decisions.
Oh, wow.
That was a kind of feeling that was there before I proposed.
Yeah.
That was a kind of feeling that was there before we bought the house. That was a feeling that was there before I booked the wedding. When I went into that's the feeling I'd been living with for all those years, and I'd been ignoring it because of neediness and desperation and not feeling good enough. So when I took that first leap and called off the wedding, I just reached breaking point, to be honest, in the relationship. The relationship was very abusive, verbally, mentally, sometimes physically, and I stayed in it and I tolerated it because I just didn't feel like anybody else would want me. I didn't realize that was the reason at the time, but when I actually surrendered to the reality and the truth of what I was feeling, that was what it was. And that was the first one I did. The first step was to end the wedding, and it was scary. It did take me a few weeks to really draw a line in it. At first, I didn't move into the house. At first, we were having time apart, and then, I can remember distinctly this one evening. I've never actually shared this. This one evening, we were getting all the things out of the apartment that we lived in, and when I'd not moved into the house, I'd also blocked my ex-girlfriend's phone number. I'd blocked her on social media, and I just didn't want to see her because I just required some space. And a few weeks later, I had to go to the apartment to move some stuff out, and I think she was either there or she met me there. I can't remember. And we're having discussions around, is this really what I want? It wasn't, she obviously didn't want it. She wanted us to stay together. And I can remember just being there with her, and I was just crying. And I think it was sad. There was sadness there, but it also, I think there was sadness. I think there was relief. I think there was a whole mixture of emotions. And yeah, I just stayed true to the decision. And it was a really poignant moment because a lot of things inside of my head was screaming at me to just, so much doubt, so much confusion, but I just couldn't back away from what felt right, and I just stayed with it. And it was really interesting because up until that point, all the conversations we'd had were more like arguments. They weren't conversations.
Yeah. And
that one on the bed, just laid there together, and for me, it was like a goodbye kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'd made my mind up by that point, and when I left, that was completely done then. So yeah, it was scary. All these decisions that I made took place over about 6 months. They weren't all instant. First, it was a relationship, then it was the house, and then it was the business partner, then it was the franchisees, and there was one at a time. It's not like I did them all at once. But yeah, it was, looking back, I didn't know it at the time, but obviously looking back, it was a period of cleansing, if you will.
Yeah.
And it all just came about from just trusting what felt right. And the more I did it, the better it felt, the more I built the trust, and the more simple my life became. I can remember having nothing in a lot of respects, moving back home with my parents, taking a hit financially and all sorts. And I kind of had nothing, but I also felt the happiest I'd ever felt.
Wow.
Because I was just completely being me.
Completely being you. And it sounds to me as well what you were doing. You were creating space for the real you to come out. It sounds to me like you didn't have space for that. You were so filtered.
No, yeah, completely. There was no space at all. I can remember picking my ex up from work sometimes, and she'd get into my car and I'd listen to an audiobook. And she'd just start going, oh, disgusting, what's this? Oh, turn it off. I was like, really? And it's just an example of the fact there was no space for me to be me. And it was that, talk about boxes. Yeah, there was a complete box around me, and I persevered with it for, 28 years of my life.
Exactly. And now that you're working with men worldwide, helping them, what do you see as the most common, let's use challenge for them to take the step to open up for themselves?
There's a few. One of them is the pace of life that they live with. They live too fast and too hard.
Yeah.
When you're living so fast and so hard, it's very difficult to actually feel fulfilled or feel loved, because everything's something to do and nothing's anything to be.
Yeah.
So the pace of life that they've been indoctrinated into living based on what it means to be a man and what it means to be. I was there. What it means to be successful. That's one thing. The second thing is that they just don't know how to feel. They just don't know how to navigate their emotions. They often have been in an environment where they didn't get a great deal of love from the father, and they often didn't feel like their voice mattered. And they felt quite lost with their emotions, because on one hand, they've got don't be a girl, don't cry, man up, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other side, they've got don't show off, don't be arrogant, don't be all this. So it's kind of like, well, who am I supposed to be?
Yeah.
And as a result, they just thrust themselves into business in order to prove themselves and gain significance, only to realize when they get the success that nothing's changed. If anything, they feel worse. They don't feel proud. They don't feel fulfilled. They don't feel happy. So they don't feel excited. There's no passion in their life. So feeling, and when I say feeling, it's two avenues really, expression and receiving. They don't know how to do those two things. They don't know how to receive, even a compliment.
Mm-hmm.
They'll look away, or they'll brush it off, or whatever.
Yeah.
They'll change the subject or move on to the next thing. And the final thing I'd say is, for these guys, what is the final thing? Nature, I would say. All the guys have got a really deep connection with nature. All humans do.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever we're reconnecting with nature, and the way in which we do that is the retreats that we run are always in the middle of nature.
Mm-hmm.
No other houses around, no mobile signal, and they reconnect and they feel so grounded and energized, and and they realize, oh fuck, wow, I used to love being out in nature.
Mm-hmm.
And that then starts a domino effect of other things they used to love to do.
Yeah.
And then start doing them again.
Yeah.
So, I'd say it's a combination of those things.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting? You might have been really struggling to be more and have more and all of those doing things, and then really what was all about was to be, and the beauty of simplicity, the beauty of silence, the beauty of nature, the beauty of just being. And thank you for sharing that. I think and now I'm talking about myself here, just as much as I think my audience, the importance to look at people as who they are, no matter which container they are in. So there's a male container or a female container, and nowadays there are even quite a bit of people that don't feel that they belong to either, but vast majority feel at least that they are either a woman or a man. But nevertheless, if we would be able to look at people as human beings without those labels, I often wonder what that would look like and feel like, and how we would treat each other.
It starts with the person, doesn't it? They've got to see themselves in that way.
Yeah.
For a lot of the men that we work with, they've been in fear all their life.
Yeah.
And so they've often been showing up taking things, and not in a mean way. There's no malice to it, but it's often been about what can they get, and how they see themselves completely, and how they see the world as well. Because life wants you to win, and them getting their heads around that and actually understanding that life wants me to win and I have to fight for what I want, and there's more than enough for me and for everybody, and them then embracing easy, it's a big shift for them.
Yeah. So from that note, then I can say that we're coming close to the end of this episode. I could probably talk to you forever about this. I think this angle to the gender box is so interesting, and so we need more discussions around that. But my question to you, Tim, at this point, what is the change that you want to see in your world?
In my world, my own personal world?
Yeah, well, and your professional world. What is the thing that you would like to see differently as a man, as a transformational leader? And what do you see as your role in order to create that change?
More fun. The curse of the achiever is dancing the line between constant and never-ending improvement and being fulfilled. That's the dance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Being content with what you've got and really being grateful whilst also striving for more. And I think having fun really plays a big part in that.
Going in your flow, having fun, and raising that, being in that high vibrancy state of mind. That is beautiful. Tim, I want to thank you so much for being a guest on our podcast. And for our listeners, please go to runamagnus.com/podcast to see all the notes and information about Tim and how you can contact him and become a powerful man. Was this podcast of value for you? I sure hope so. If so, feel free to share the love and give us your generous review on iTunes or Stitcher. And remember that you can always go to runamagnus.com to find out more about the Changemakers and how we can help you drive the change you want to see in your world.